connecting all educators with a passion for teaching and a health for faith. Get ready for a transformative journey with the Educators with Oil podcast, where host Ronette Branham is dedicated to helping teachers become better through biblical strategies.
Hi, welcome to Educators with Oil. Welcome back. We are diving into an important conversation about special education today. And I am your hostess, Ronette Branham, here to offer biblical strategies for effective teaching. And so one question I have is how can we ensure that every child receives the support that they need? How teachers, administrators, and special education consultants can work together to create that learning environment. What could we do? So today we have joining me Diana R. Williams, a special education consultant. And I am excited. She has extensive experience with helping schools navigate IEPs, individual education program or plans, behavior interventions, and best practices for inclusive education. So we're going to be unpacking the challenges that teachers face, the role of administration, providing real support, and we're going to get into this conversation. But I am reminded that God calls us to steward over the lives that are entrusted to us. Proverbs 31, 8-9 says, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. So that is something, ensure justice for those being crushed. So we have to speak up. So that is consultants and teachers speaking up on behalf of their students, administrators speaking on behalf of our teachers and our students. So let's just get into it and discuss the demands of special education with our special guest, Diana R. Williams. Hi, Diana.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm great, actually. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about this episode because I've had special educators on the show, and we talked about inside the classroom, what it looks like. I never heard one person talk about what it looks like from the administrator's point of view. Never. So I saw that that's what you do. So I'm excited about that.
Yes, me too. Love doing that. I guess I'll take a moment just to introduce myself. My name is Diana Williams. I am the founder of the Speducated Leader. We work with educators throughout the country to increase their special education content knowledge, their impact, and overall capacity within their role. And we have worked with organizations throughout the country, from Milwaukee to New Orleans to New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and it has been a lot of fun. Me specifically, I started education working in Camden, New Jersey as a Teach for America core member. And I spent a few years in Camden teaching lower elementary. That's truly my jam, before transitioning to Brooklyn, New York, where I am now. And I had the opportunity to co-found a charter elementary school. I was able to really create a special education department that responded to the whole child. And so since then, started my business. I also work with KIPP New Jersey, where I oversee our elementary school special education department as the director of special education, and really passionate about SPED, really passionate about finding unique strategies to meet the needs of students so that they're successful, especially students that look like me. So excited to be here tonight.
Oh, you said a mouthful. I love that. The part that really stuck was about you co-founding a charter school where you were able to develop that program. And that's putting the whole foundation together and building. That is cool. And a lot of times we think the special education department is separate from everybody, but we have inclusion classrooms, and we have classrooms where the students are not classified, but they need extra help, they need some kind of special education. And so I'm just excited about this and your role in education, especially the consulting part.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I just want to get in. I just want to get into let it flow. So what is the role of special education consulting in schools?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does that look?
Yeah. So what I'm doing is sharing it on my social media too, so that
Oh,
people can join us live. That's why you see me looking down. Um, so what is the role of a consultant? That's a great question. When I'm working with teachers, when I'm working with leaders, whether it's a special education leader, whether it's a principal, my first goal is to kind of observe students in classrooms with them. I want to identify where they are mindset wise in terms of what students are able to do. And then that kind of clues in or identifies my entry point for how I can work collaboratively with them. When I'm doing co-observations with leaders or even working with teachers, sometimes when you're in it, like I know you've heard of the saying, like when you are in the forest, it's hard to sometimes see the larger forest because all you can see is trees around you. So I want to work with them to step out of the forest so they can see the bigger picture. And so what the work looks like is really grounding them in the importance of data and how we use data to inform our decision making. So it's easy to say that a student is challenging or a student is having difficult days or they're throwing tantrums or walking out or cursing the teacher out. And so what I do is ground the adult in, okay, so if these things are happening, one, what is leading to the behavior that we're seeing? Do we have data to suggest and review to say that, okay, maybe this data only occurs in the morning, or maybe it only occurs with one specific adult, or only in one specific class. And that clues us in to be able to then identify what our next steps are. So really what my job is to illuminate the data and pair it with some of the emotions that folks often feel when they're in it every day. So that way we're making decisions that are best suited for kids that are not based off of just gut reactions and what we think might be the problem.
yeah. You made me think of once you said that you sit in the classroom and observe.
Mm-hmm.
I needed you last year, right? It really, really, it was trying because I didn't understand and I couldn't see it. All I could see is this child acting out. He was every morning at a certain point. When we went to
Mm-hmm.
math in the afternoon, we didn't have that problem. But by then I'm already frustrated. Like, yeah, well, but in the morning we had phonics. She was fine because she could sound out every letter. But then when it got time to reading time, where we actually were reading, oh my goodness, it was horrible. I mean, my morning was horrible. I was frustrated. She was frustrated. I'm like, you gotta go, because what am I gonna do in class? And so it
Mm-hmm.
was, or I ignored her. Like that was like, okay, I'm gonna get wait till when I get time, then I'll pull her into a small group. But that 40, I don't know how many minutes, because it felt like 40 minutes, probably was 10, it probably was. But having somebody observe and say, okay, it took me a long time to find out it was the reading was the problem. It was
Mm-hmm.
that frustrated. She was feeling inadequate. She didn't think she could do it, so she didn't know how to express herself, and I didn't know how to take that expression. I took it like, girl.
Yeah, it's that level of reflection that often is hard, right? Because even though we're the adults, even though we're the teachers, it's easy for us to get emotionally hijacked ourselves.
Mhm.
And we get so overwhelmed with dealing with the behavior every single day that sometimes it's hard to see a way through. And I remember when I was working with one teacher up in Harlem, she was having a negative experience with a teacher where with a student where the student liked her as a teacher, but he would always walk out or just not complete his work. And so I sat in and observed with her. I provided her with feedback, and she didn't necessarily agree with what I said. So I was like, okay, so how about I sit in, and do you feel comfortable if I record you? That way, then we can debrief it together. So I recorded her, and then in the after meeting, we watched the recording together, and she was taken aback. She's like, oh my gosh, I do nag him all the time. And I'm like, yeah, girl, I tried to tell you, but that's okay. Now you see it. Now we can work through it. And I think even something like another student at that school was having difficulty with students being off task. And this was a high school, on their phones, showing up sometimes. They were doing wild things on their phones, actually, watching movies, playing games in the middle of class. And I asked them, and I'm like, did you ever tell the students to put their phones away? He said, well, no. I said, have you connected with their parents? He said, oh, I don't do the phone. I text them. And I said, oh, I said, you have to talk with the parents, communicate with them. Like, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
We talked about, we role played what the parent conversation sounds like. Then we practice what it sounds like to give clear expectations and then follow up with the students. And who would have thunk? The students were able to meet his expectation and they were a lot more engaged in class. So it's not so much that I'm coming in and you know, telling them something that's going to be rocket science, right? Sometimes it's small one, and I'm a big firm believer in 1% changes. What's the one thing that we can do to tweak our approach to have just better and more favorable responses? And I think that's an example of that.
It is, because that a lot of times we don't know what we don't know, or it's too much. I don't want to say it's too much to think. It's too much to think sometimes. Like, I don't want to think. I just want to do it. You know, but you know what I mean? I don't know if that sounds right. That's not an educated answer, but that's too much. Like, for instance, somebody told me to do something and I said, I don't know how to do that. Right. I was looking for it, and it's because I didn't feel like thinking. I don't feel like figuring it out. Because why? And so instead of them, I was looking for them to say to me, well, I can help you. I can show you how to do it. But then it came a different kind of answer because I said that. I could have said from the back, can you show me what I need to do? That would have just stopped everything, right? But it takes too much time to think. I don't want to think. Just tell me what to do, right? Like that. And so that is something we need to be intentional about our thoughts, about, you know, about looking into a situation and thinking about it. Well, what could the problem be, instead of like this child just acting out? Like,
and I think, interesting enough, a teacher saying, well, I don't know, show me, that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, folks take the position of, well, I've done all the things and I already do that. And I'm like, okay, so let me watch you do it in action. And that's when we realize, I always try to assume the best about people, especially when it comes to behavior, because again, it could be taxing emotionally. And sometimes it can be something as simple as if a student has a token chart or giving positive praise to a student consistently, folks might say, I do that all the time. Of course I do that. And then I observe it and I'm like, that was not positive. If that was an example of positive, that's the problem. So it allows us to pinpoint, because sometimes there's just a lack of clarity where people think they're doing a thing, but they're actually not doing it. And so I'm here to work in partnership and collaboration with them so that they have a clear model of what it looks like. And that also speaks to a lot of the work that I do with leaders, right? So what does the coaching look like with the teacher? And what are the different levels of it? I have a conversation with the teacher. I tell them to do the thing. I observe them again. It's not being done. My next level is modeling it for them and then having them replicate. Then we're going to debrief with the teacher to say, hey, what was different between what I did and what you did? And then that allows us to have that coaching relationship. But you have to kind of build on, and you have to have leaders that are also confident in their ability to execute the strategies, because no one is listening to anyone that just can talk a good game. I want to actually see you in work. Like, what does it look like for you to reset a student or de-escalate them? And then I'm more bought into what it is that you're telling me.
So with that, do you find, and this, I know me, like I can try something, then it doesn't work. And then I'm like, well, I tried it. Let's try something new. Yeah, but that's not working. And then you get so frustrated, you're like, I'm done. I can't. And we have not put in the time. Not saying everybody's like that. I'm saying a general ed teacher with somebody with special needs in their classroom who are performing that outside of the parameters that we think they should be in. You know, because we had that ideal student. And then this student is, I can't read that well. And then you're telling me to read. How is that going to work? And so do you find that we're just not putting in the time or we don't know how to do the thing?
So, a couple of things. One of the things that I think makes me effective as a leader is that I try to bring my authentic self. So, when teachers are like, I'm tired of trying, I don't want to do nothing else, I'm like, okay, cool. You're the one that's going to be stressed at the end of the day, not me. So, let me know when you're ready. And I'm here. I can meet you halfway. One of the main reasons why behavior plans fail is because people are not consistent and we don't implement the plan as written. We want to deviate from it, or we want to do it on Monday, but not on Tuesday because we're tired. Or we're going to do it in the morning because we're good in the mornings, but by the afternoon, all hell breaks loose. So we don't want to do it no more. We don't get to do that. Like, we have to be consistent and run the play as written, so that way then we can collect the data to know if the plan is working or if we need to pivot. And that's actually one of my favorite things about special education and managing behavior, is that sometimes the first, second, third, fourth thing does not work, but then we just come back to the drawing board and figure out what else we can do, because our kids deserve it, right? When students go to certain districts, particularly when maybe the teachers and administrators don't look like them, it's easy to say that this student has a behavioral disorder. This student is emotionally disturbed. This student is X, Y, and Z, and they can't be here. Our students deserve better than that. And it's up to us to try to figure out what works for them. Yes, it's going to require us to go above and beyond and do a little bit more than we thought we would have to do when we signed on. But if you're not committed to doing what's best for children, I actually think you need to reevaluate if this is where you want to be. And I'm okay having that conversation with teachers all the time.
Oh yeah. And then I find when I'm just consistent, it gets better. It gets easier. Life, like I just spoke about the child that I had prior, how once I understood what was happening, I was able to be a better, more effective teacher, because I was failing that child.
Yeah.
And the reason I say I was is because I didn't step back and look. I didn't observe patterns. I saw a pattern, but I didn't understand the triggers. So it did get better. It does get better. So I like that. So what are the biggest challenges that general education teachers face when working with students with disabilities? And of course, that could be any disability, any special, delayed, anything. So what are the biggest challenges that you feel that we face besides our consistency?
I think general education teachers and just all educators need more knowledge on what disabilities students have in their building and how it manifests. So how does it show up and impact their learning and their behavior? When I know that a student has ADHD and I understand that that might look like fidgeting, that might look like calling out, that might look like being overly talkative, I can kind of anticipate some of those behaviors, and I have more grace, and I can identify strategies to meet them where they are. In the same way, if a student in my school has dyslexia, I can plan ahead in my reading instruction to make sure that I'm chunking materials, that I'm able to model and provide immediate feedback to them so that they can grow. So I think that's the first thing, just having greater understanding on disabilities and how they manifest within schools. And I think the other part is taking ownership that all students are all of our students. So whether a student has a disability, whether they have an IEP or not, it's still our responsibility as an educator to ensure that they're learning, that they're safe. And sometimes, depending on the school, sometimes they kind of brush kids off with special education to only the special education teacher. Mm-hmm. Coming back to schools from COVID and lockdown, more than ever before, it's important that all of us are equipped with strategies and skills to meet the needs of all students, because especially when thinking about students in Black and Brown communities, in lower income communities, sometimes special education is still taboo. So that means that even though a student may qualify, the parents don't want to go through the process. So technically they don't have a special education. They don't have the classification. They don't have an IEP, but they might need it. Yeah. Doesn't mean that we don't serve them and meet them where they are to ensure that they're learning and growing, no matter what grade that they're in.
that's something, because I teach second grade, so the majority of the students are not classified in any kind of way, but we have behaviors. Every behavior is a behavior. We have various behaviors, and I'm able to spot or understand what's happening, but at the same time, I'm not trained. Like the training we have is overall general. The same training that I hear for my English language learners is what I hear for special ed. It's more take your time, slow it down, check for understanding in a way that they can understand it. Try to find their learning style. All that kind of stuff is the same thing. So doesn't matter if they're classified or not, because like you said, all the students are our students. So does it matter if they're classified?
No, because I tell people all the time, yes, I can tell you SPED strategies. I can tell you strategies that can benefit students with Down syndrome or students with intellectual disabilities. But at the end of the day, good teaching is good teaching. And sometimes I feel like schools get so distracted on small group instruction and referrals to special education that we're missing, actually, maybe if we improve tier 1 instruction with the whole masses guide, we wouldn't need as many kids in small group and to be referred. But they want to jump to the more intensive supports instead of really zoning in on how can I equip all staff so that all students have more access? How can I ensure that anchor charts are being used across all classrooms so that students have a visual to pair with the auditory? How can I embed hands-on opportunities for students to manipulate their learning, whether it's in math, whether it's in ELA or phonics or anything else? So I think as a whole, if we continue to strengthen tier 1 instruction, we would be better off. Instead, I think sometimes we get distracted by whatever is the new curriculum or this and that. And well, maybe it's the teacher's problem. And let's just provide the coaching and support at the tier 1 level. So that way the kids that are actually being moved along are the ones that actually need it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You know what? This is what I did. I teach English language learners, right? Mm-hmm. They range from in second grade, no letter recognition, no letter sound recognition, to reading at a second, maybe third grade level, and everything in between. Most of them are on the lower end. And I decided, because it was so hard, because I needed, with that range, I needed the small group. I really needed, but only thing, a large amount of the students were at the low end, that it was, it wasn't working for the students who could read well, because I'm letters, right? And then they can read. So I found out the small group, but I had so many small groups because you can't have, more than 6 kids in a small group. So I decided to see if I could split the class in half, which we have 2 classes that we swap in half, and work with the higher end and the lower end separately, so that I can teach a full lesson. It worked for me. It really did. So you said that tier 1 and you're teaching the whole class, that really worked for me. So what you're saying backs me up. There's some people say that's not how you do it. You have to have everybody together, but it's not working. It could work in some classes, but to me, I think you teach the whole class, just like you said. It works for me. I don't know if that's because I tried to do the research, meaning my experience was the research, and so I can appreciate that.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is trial by fire. We just figure it out because what we've been doing doesn't work, and we try it. People don't believe it, and then they see the results, and they're like, "Okay, you can do your thing. We trust you."
That's so funny, because that's what it is. If somebody told me, because I first tried to keep it a secret, because we have 2 classrooms of how many students altogether? 42 or 44 students, something like that, right? All together. And so we swapped the classes halfway through the day so that they'll have that Spanish speaking teacher. So I'm like, this is what we got to do, because it's not working for me, because I speak English, she speaks Spanish. It works all for her because she speaks Spanish and they don't know English. So that's a whole other level to it. They speak Spanish and I speak English, and I'm teaching in English. So I try to keep it a secret. Let's keep it a secret. Don't tell nobody, right? And then I'm talking to somebody, and they're like, "Look, I would rather get written up for doing something that's going to help my students than get written up for something nonsense, right?" So it worked. Then it didn't. We didn't continue because it really didn't work for the. Everybody has their research, right? Everybody has their research. You could make this episode right here work for somebody and won't work for somebody else, right? This is so everybody, any research can fit here, any research can fit there. So it just didn't work. But I appreciate that because that works for me. And so I have questions, but I don't really want to have questions. Is there something you want to share with us, that any strategies before we get into any more questions or something like that? Like strategies that you think any teacher could use before and after the students are classified?
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing is it's helpful when teachers have a lot more clarity on where students are performing and where they are not. For instance, sometimes in math, let's say there is a story problem and students are not being able to solve it. Sometimes we stay high level and surface level to say that, well, they can't do one step story problems. But I always push teachers to dive deeper. Within that story problem, I want to know, are they able to identify the knowns and unknowns? Are they able to write a number sentence that matches the story and or a number sentence that matches the strategy in which they're solving? Are they able to choose an appropriate strategy and maybe they're almost there, but they miscounted, so that's why they got the wrong answer? So when we dig deeper to really break down what it is, the criteria for success and the things that we want to see, it's easier to diagnose where the misstep is. So that way, then I'm tailoring my reteach or my feedback that I'm giving the student during conferences around that point versus just saying, well, they can't solve the problem, because that's not true, right? There's some components within it that they can do, and then we build on it over time, and then they're eventually able to solve the larger problem. So I think about that, like try to dig deeper to diagnose specifically where within the standard, where within the skill that the student has a misstep. That way you're able to target that and plan accordingly.
Sounds like that sounds like everything is special ed, right? We call it differentiation. But sounds like you have to teach with this in mind, with these same special education strategies for the general education classroom.
Yeah. And like it all goes hand in hand. I think about special education things like accommodations, right? We think only certain people should get accommodations, but how many of us watch TV with the captions on? I can hear perfectly fine, but I still like to read it as I hear it because it just reinforces what it is that I'm bringing in. I think about the ability to use a ramp versus the stairs, or an elevator instead of the stairs. These are different accommodations that many of us use and have access to, but technically we don't need them because we're not in the wheelchair, right? I think about even something as simple as when we're learning to write an essay in high school, they teach us to make an outline, to write the topic and the heading, the topic sentence, and then we pull out the details. That's a graphic organizer. So while that's a strategy that we work for with kids to help them organize their thoughts, that also just benefits people in general. It just helps us be able to access whatever it is that we're doing so that it's not as hard.
I know every professional development, any research I do for any episode, it all comes down to the same thing. Mine basically is the learning styles. And how do the students learn? And then if you incorporate that, like you just said a few minutes ago, incorporate all of the learning styles, or as many as you can, into a lesson. For instance, our math, we have manipulatives, we have hands-on, we have visual, we have verbal, auditory. Everything is in our math lesson. So if you don't get it, maybe we'll pull you over, or we'll give you some more like some students, they're like, can I have some of those place value blocks? They don't need it. Like you just said, they don't need it. They could do vertical addition. They don't need the blocks. but then there's some who do. So I every lesson, if you incorporate, that's how I operate.
Mm-hmm.
If you incorporate every learning style, is as many as you can in a lesson, you reach as many kids as you can. So I appreciate this.
And I think one last thing, like the transferable skill from this, when students are lucky enough to be in a classroom like yours, where they have access to manipulatives, they have access to anchor charts to support their learning, we're teaching kids what works for them and what doesn't work for them. So then they're able to advocate for what they need to be successful. That goes in learning, that goes in behavioral supports. That's just mirroring what we want them to do throughout their lives, of advocating what works, what they like, what they don't like, and what they need to be successful. Because we know that it would be a disservice to think that every student is going to get what they need automatically. But imagine the power of a sixth grader transferring to a new school and say, hey, this is math class. I struggle with it a little bit. Can I have access to manipulatives? And can you help me by providing me with the notes in advance so that way I can follow along? Like that would take so much guessing out of it for new teachers and make it easier, because it's like, oh, okay, you already know how this works. Great, I can do that for you.
So that's something that I could tell my students, because when we get ready, just say for math, or we get ready for literacy and they have a phonics notebook, I talk to them about referring back. Just to ask the students how to spell a random word. I know they have it written. Just say it's a long A. They have a long A chart where we add it. Every time they find a new one, they add it. And they have to know that word before they write it. You just can't write a word to say, okay, randomly I wrote gate. And I know what that says. So just to keep reiterating that you go back and grab that information, that if I keep on telling them, then I talk to them about going to the next class with it. That will work, because I don't do that.
It's the same way, right? When you're going grocery shopping, you have a list. No one actually some people do, but that's how you forget things sometimes, right? But you have your list, you go to the grocery store, you check it, you go it all. Like that's a skill that we have to teach students so that they can manage how they navigate the world. Some people can have a wonderful memory. I don't have a great memory, and I learned that, and that's why I take copious notes and I organize my meeting notes. That way I'm able to, like you said, refer back. And I think sometimes an access point is, if we connect it, unfortunately, to social media or anything else, like our kids are whizzes when it comes to technology. And I often think about students and they get into an argument with their friend and they're able to tell me everything that happened and who said what and what happened after that and who told what and everything. But then we read a story and they're like, it's the same thing, boo. Retell me the story. Tell me the characters. Tell me the problem and what was the resolution. And so when we help them make those connections, then it's more transferable to them. And even thinking about behavior, like when a student is misbehaving, one of the first things that I always teach them is to advocate for needing a break. It is okay to feel. It is not okay for you to flip desks. What I need you to do is acknowledge that you feel away, signal to your teacher that you need to step out for a moment and step out, and then exercise your coping skills, whether it's getting water, whether it's playing with kinetic stand, whether it's taking deep breaths, whatever it is, and then come back ready to learn.
Okay, you hit a point. Okay, I get these students. You say I have 5. I have 27 students in my class, right? In one class, and 26 in another. So yeah. So I have these behaviors coming in my classroom. I don't know. So I don't know their triggers. I don't know their behaviors. I don't know that I can't look at them and see they need a break. So there you go. I'm a general education teacher. Some things is coping skills, and some things is like, I don't know. And so what do you tell those teachers coming in? I'm new. Just say I'm new. I've been teaching for a long time, but just say I'm new and I come in the classroom and then I have these behaviors. That do I write these students up? Do I refer these students? Do I sit back? I know you said observe first, but really I'm frustrated from day one. What do I do?
Yeah. So when I say observe, I can go in a classroom between 3 and 5 minutes and identify the kids that are more outliers for behavior. I'm listening for how the teacher gives directions, because sometimes we are not clear on what we want for kids. We'll say, okay, stand up and get your folder and get ready for math. Getting ready for math might look different for you. It might look different for me. And I didn't tell you that you couldn't talk, but then you start talking and I'm yelling at you. That's not clear and that's not fair. So sometimes I think the first step is making sure that you're giving directions that are clear, and it talks about the sound. It talks about what you want kids to do so that they know what to do with their bodies. Then you're holding them accountable for meeting your expectations. When you are giving clear directions and clear expectations, you should have maybe 2 outliers in your classroom. If you're having 4, 5, 6, 7 students that are off task and not meeting your expectation, it's telling me that there's something going on with your directions and you as a teacher, more about the teacher, less about the students.
Yeah, you sound like Darryl Williams. Do you know him? Oh, he teaches classroom management. He's a former teacher, former principal. Now he's a consultant.
Okay.
And he teaches. He's like, oh no. He lets us know he was a terrible teacher, and every year is a new year, and that's more is the direct instruction, making sure it's clear. And that I found out. I have a student in my classroom. He just came from another country. I said, take out your phonics notebooks. He's like, what? I show him a phonics notebook. Mind you, he doesn't have one. Right? He just got here. He doesn't even know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, come on now. You see, I got this notebook right here. Now, do you have one? And he's like, no. Right? Oh, let me get you one. But it's like the direction's not even clear because he don't understand what I'm saying. They don't use a visual. Don't matter because he doesn't even have what I'm asking for. So you have to be clear and concise. Like, this is what I need you to do. And if you have to first make sure they have the tools. And that's true. I'm laughing at myself because that happened today.
It happens all the time when we realize that we were not as clear as we thought. And I think you see it often too with folks that don't speak English as their first language, and like our kindergartners. Kindergartners are so literal. So at the school in years past, we used to have tape on the floor where the students had to walk on the tape to make sure they go one way and the other students go the other way. And the direction was make sure you're keeping your feet on your tape. And so typical people would have the tape in the middle and you're walking like just regularly. Well, the kindergarten students, they're like trying to balance because they're trying to put one foot in front of the other and only walk on the tape. And it's like, I see why you did that. Like, that was my bad. So definitely.
That's true. I had a student after COVID, that kindergarten class that left in 2020. Then they first grade, they had no school. Well, they had online, but they were watching TV, they were not. So they came to my class the next year. I'm telling a student to put his books. I put books on the desk. Put your books in your desk. I don't know what's a desk. Because guess what? Kindergarten didn't have desks. They had tables. He didn't know what's a desk. Why can't you put your books in the desk? He didn't know what a desk was. At least he was wise enough to say, I don't know what a desk is. Because I could have been really, look, come on, man. Right? But he didn't understand. So, yeah, those directions, you have to make sure they understand. And we have to model. I have to model lining up. And I mean lining up. Because I could tell the students, like you said, get a line and be quiet while they're in line. I had a whole visual, whole video, whole everything. Look at those students. This is what your line should look like, right? So that's true. So I like that. Making sure you're clear. You said make sure you're clear. What did you say first?
Understanding disabilities.
Yeah. Oh wow. So okay, that's that. I know you're a coach, a consultant, right? I don't understand the disabilities. I don't. You coming in my classroom and I'm frustrated. I don't. So how does that work for me? Am I supposed to have this training prior if I'm a general ed teacher? Because I'm not getting certified. Am I supposed to have this training?
I mean, supposed to is an interesting word, because I think there's so many competing factors. I think it would be advantageous for you to learn more, but I think that's also some of the gaps that I see sometimes. It's we're waiting for someone else to teach us about disabilities. Mm-hmm. But again, if I'm the one in the classroom struggling and I know my students have oppositional defiance disorder, I'm going to Google real quick, what is oppositional defiance disorder and what can I do to get through to the student? So we can't always put the onus on leaders to lead a session about it, because we also have the ability to Google things and talk to Siri and talk to Alexa and all the things. But yeah, I love to learn more about it. And I often tell educators too, just because a student has ADHD, just because a student may be on medicine today does not mean that they're on medicine tomorrow. We need to operate as if they are not medicated. And I never push parents to medicate their children, because I think that is a personal decision that they should make for themselves. And sometimes when teachers want to take the easy route, or leaders want to take the easy route, it's like, oh, well, it's just because they're not on their medicine today. Or, oh, mom really needs to put them on medication because we can't deal with this. And that's not fair.
No, it's not. So you're right. That's what I do. That's what I do for these episodes. I do a little research, and I do a lot of research because of the fact that I want to be effective in what I say I'm called to do. Mm-hmm. So that's just my thing. So I like that. No, nobody should do anything for me, but it'll work for me. It's better for me. I could be a more effective teacher. Right. That's true.
I think about the idea that faith without works is dead. So like, I can ask for all the help and I can hope for the best and all of that. But if I'm not going to do my part and meet folks halfway, then how can I think that things are going to be different? Like, I have to do my part. I have to take ownership of my own learning and development, as well as holding other people accountable to also giving me the feedback and training and developing me as well.
Right. My daughter said to me a few minutes ago, I was telling her about a situation. She was like, that doesn't make sense. How do you expect to do the same thing every day and then expect something different to happen?
Insanity.
Yeah, but I can't. Like, something I can't do. And she said, you can do it because it's not working the way you're describing it. You're saying this job is doing the same thing, but take that away, he won't, because he doesn't understand that he can't. Like, he shouldn't be able, you know. And I'm like, but I need that. And she's like, well, it doesn't make sense. Can't be upset with him because you keep putting something in front of him that he can't touch, right? And she's like, that doesn't make sense. Why you keep, what are you talking about? Because you keep doing the same thing. You're going to be upset with him.
I talk to people about the idea of power over purpose, right? Mm-hmm. Do we want the kid to just listen to us because we're their adult and we said so? Or are we trying to get to a bigger purpose, right? Like, do we want the student to be engaged and complete their work? Or we just want to be able to put these tempting cubes on their desk and have them not touch it because we said so, even though as an adult, we might even be tempted to touch it. So like, it's like, am I being powerful or am I being purposeful? And I think that's the thing.
Yeah. And it's something so simple. It's a pencil sharpener. It's a pencil sharpener. You know, pencil sharpeners, they break. And I'm like, please, I will sharpen every pencil. I sharpen every pencil. He don't understand that. He doesn't. He's like, he doesn't understand. I can't sharpen this pencil. You got a pencil sharpener right there. My pencil needs to be sharpened. Mm-hmm. What you expect? Why can't I just go sharpen it? I could before the last one broke, right? Now I can't. He doesn't get it.
And I think about even something as simple as, if we know that he likes to write with a sharp pencil, how can we make sure that we have 20 plus extra pencils so that when one breaks, he get a new one? He don't need to sharpen it.
But I do. But it's not that. This needs to be sharpened. You know, we have this inclusive classroom, whether they're labeled or classified or not. You still have to figure out their needs, and that's a need that he needs to. When I dull this pencil up, I need to go sharpen it, right? I don't care about the other 5 pencils I have. I don't care about that.
I want to use this one.
Yeah. So I get it. I'm learning. My daughter just told me that, and then you made it plain. What are you trying to do here? Like, you want to be in charge of the pencil sharpener? Come on, that's not even serious, right? If it breaks, oh well. I need it, but you know what I'm saying? Take it away and then take it away. So yeah. So with this, we have laws. I know I keep talking about kids, students are not classified, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have, you know, students with IEPs, right? We have people with 50, is it called 504s? 504s, right?
Yep.
So we have that in these. What is my obligation and my school's obligation to make sure these are followed? You know, or is that something that the teacher just has to understand? I don't know, because there's no should. You know, there's no should.
Yeah.
This is what you're supposed to do. I don't know.
So this is a very interesting topic considering the political climate right now and the closure of the Federal Department of Education. When we think about special education, it stems from the IDEA Act, with the Individuals of Education Disabilities Act. And it also relates to FAPE, which is the Free and Appropriate Education, which states that any student, regardless of their disability or non-disability, is entitled to a free and appropriate education. Then on top of that, we have other guidelines that speaks to least restrictive environments and supports. So we try to keep students with their general education peers as much as possible, because the idea of removing a student and putting them in a special education only classroom or only school is very restrictive, because they are not able to learn from their typical peers. And it may create a glass ceiling for their development and their growth.
Mm-hmm.
So when thinking about the work that we're doing individually in schools and public schools, we have the right to, one, identify students that may qualify for special education to ensure they're getting the supports that they need, which means that they're referred and they undergo a variety of different evaluations to determine how they learn, their speech and language levels. And this is done with the consent of the family and parents, of course. But we also just want to make sure that we are serving our students in the best of our abilities. So are we providing them with support, whether it's behavioral support or academic support? We cannot just allow students to struggle. That's not allowed, right? So we want to show up and do what's best for our kids with special education specifically, and we have to stay compliant. So thinking about annual meetings with the family to review the services and the mandates that are on there to identify if it's working or not. Collecting data on the effectiveness of strategies. So those are just some different things. I felt like I was all over the place, but generally, our responsibility as schools to students and families.
Okay, so because of what you do, you're consulting. What do administrators need to know? Because, you know, they're not in the classroom, or, you know, that sometimes that may have been a teacher before. Some had, but I think, do they all have been a teacher before? I don't know. I don't know how it works. I thought you know how we do steps. Some people, they don't take that step that long. They may have been a music teacher. I don't know. But what does an administrator need to know? Because we will send our kids out to the principal's office. I mean, that's not what really they need sometimes. So what does an administrator need to know to support the teachers, the students, both even?
I think leading by example is the thing that comes top of mind. How are you showing and demonstrating the strategies that you're teaching to your teachers? Because if every time a student misbehaves or doesn't meet expectations, they're being sent out to my office, and I'm able to support them and reset them, one, that's undermining the just authority of the teacher in the classroom. Because as a student, I'm like, well, I don't got to listen to you anyway. I'm going to go to Miss Williams. And Miss Williams, we're going to talk because I like Miss Williams and I don't even like you like that, right? So I don't want, as an administrator, to ever be to think that I'm a firefighter and I'm always going to put out fires, because that's not productive for the school. It's not productive for the development of teachers. Instead, I want to embed new skills and strategies to the teachers. I want to model it. Again, lead by example, show them how these things can work, and just like be with them, talk to them to figure out what they need, the development they want, and provide that for them, whether it's from me, whether it's from another teacher leader or anybody else that's going to provide my people with the support that they need.
Yeah, because there are always some teachers who work magic. There's always that teacher, and it's not that they're working magic; it's that they were consistent in their strategies, and they knew what worked and didn't work, and then they, if it didn't work, they went back to the drawing board. So there's always those teachers, and so I think that's something too that we need to, when we have like not only grade level meetings but department meetings, because we have grade level, and for me we have department meetings for the students in the bilingual department, right? Dual language department actually. So we have those meetings, but I don't have a meeting with the second grade teachers, or just say it's I don't know what else would I need. Just say we're just focusing on literacy, or we're focusing on behaviors. That kind of, there's always a teacher that can help you. So that's great right there. So fostering that collaborative culture is something
really important.
Yeah. You see the wheels turning right now. I'm like, we have to talk about tomorrow. We have a meeting. We need to talk about this because we're all dealing with this.
Mm-hmm. And imagine if somebody have already identified strategies that work, or a way to encourage students and incentivize them to pay attention. Then if we know that it works, why can't we transfer it to your class as well? And then to the next class and to the next class. And then maybe once they get all their points at the end of the day, they get a bigger prize, right? So it's like, how can we avoid working in silo? How can we avoid reinventing the wheel and figure out what works and then duplicating it and replicating it across and throughout the day?
Okay, I appreciate this. This is really something for me. So, I think is implement strategies, be consistent, understand the not behaviors. Is that what you said? Understanding the
disabilities and how they manifest. Mm-hmm.
So I'm appreciating this right now because I'm thinking about my classroom, and with as many students as I have, that's a lot. So I shouldn't have, with 27, I should have more than 3 or 4 outliers in the class in a lesson. I don't want to say a lesson. I'm not going to take it to the whole day. In a lesson, and yeah, but I really don't. It's just that the ones, we have to learn how not to focus on those, because that's a whole other episode.
It's a whole other episode. So I would say, for those 3 or 4 kids, getting to know them and figuring out why they're disengaged during a certain time, figuring out what they like, and go from there. Relationships go a long way.
Yeah. Mine is a little different because it's a language barrier. Not everybody has that issue.
Even with Google Translate and all the things that exist today, like even if we're coloring together or just playing a game of Jenga, like it's just simple things like that sometimes that builds relationships. Even if thinking about the corner stores, right? If you have a student that speaks Spanish and they may come from Brazil or somewhere, finding their favorite snack and bringing it in, and they're like, oh my goodness, that could go a long way. So it doesn't even, the language barrier is a real thing, but we shouldn't use it as a barrier from trying to break over that and break through that with our students.
Oh yeah, because I have to pull out everything to teach a lesson. You already know what, because imagine you have 27 students in the class, you need them engaged, because you got to get that 10 minutes. And so I absolutely, Google Translate, I have my TV on and we're learning something. We don't know what this is. We have to pull up the picture. How do you say that in Spanish? This is how I say it in English. When I'm in small group, my iPad is right there. Like, we have drawn everything. I understand it. So that is absolutely no excuse. I had a principal, she taught us that you have an obligation to educate these students. I don't care what language they speak. That's your obligation. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate this. Is there anything else you want to just give us? You gave us everything you gave us a lot.
I would just say, if you haven't already, please just follow me on Instagram at the Speducated Leader. That's TheSpeducated. If you're around tomorrow, I have a webinar coming up at 6:30. It's specifically for SPED leaders, SPED coordinators, principals, thinking about how to audit your special education program to move it from good to great. And yeah, this has been wonderful.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that I'm gonna put that in the comments on YouTube. But so we can see right here on this banner, scrolling across the ticker tape down the bottom, the Speducated Leader. It doesn't say it like the speducatedleader.com, is it? Or
yep, and it's speducatedleader.com. So Speducated Leader across everything. LinkedIn, you'll see me there. Website, Instagram, Facebook, all the things. I'm everywhere.
Okay, I appreciate you. You gave me a lot to think about. You gave us all a lot to think about, really. Like I said, we have had a few special education teachers on here, and this is a different look, different perspective.
Good. I'm happy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you. So again, everyone, thank you for joining. And this is Ronette Brown, the host of Educators with Oil. And we are, please like, share, and subscribe. Share with other educators. I started thinking, because I was trying to pull something up too. I had for the closing for this, because this is here I go. I'm sorry. I apologize. Trying to navigate three things at the same time. So this has been an insightful discussion with Diana Williams. And I pray that this has equipped and encouraged you. Thank you. We talked about the power of collaboration, practical strategies, and the difference, the mindset shift, because we have a mindset shift. We really didn't get into that, but it is. We got a mindset shift in order to educate our students. So one thing that stands out with special education is about more than policies and procedures. It's about seeing each child through the eyes of Christ. Matthew 25:40 says, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So think about that. We want to follow Christ. We're going to follow him by doing for the least of his children. So again, thank you and have a blessed day.
Subscribe to Educators with Oil podcast on your preferred platform and join Ronette on this mission to empower teachers through the wisdom of the Bible. Because when biblical strategies meet the classroom, extraordinary teaching happens.
Educators, let's shine a light on our classrooms. See you on Educators with Oil podcast, where teaching and faith unite.